Welcome back to the PHNX Mercury Podcast. I am your host, Erika LeDay. I'm joined by PG1, QB1, on and off the court, in and out of the field, in and out of the studio. Where aren't you just out popping out, Stephen?
Everywhere. Always doing something basketball related for sure.
I saw Stephen was playing basketball the other day, and I said, I feel like I'm getting your intro a little bit wrong. I feel like I've been talking about you being a QB a little too much, and not enough about you being the PG that you are. So
it's a balance. We do both though, for sure.
I just got to make sure, the people know that you're out there hooping, Like, let them know, Stephen.
For sure. I'm always out hooping.
And when he posts the video on Twitter, I'll bring it to the pod. Don't you worry.
Probably won't go on Twitter, but
I'll wait and tempt him. It's okay. Beggars can't be choosers for now, but we get them a little by little. You know what I mean? But Stephen, how the heck are you today?
I'm doing great. It's officially WNBA season.
It sure is.
Everything about this season is about to make for yet another special one to one up everything that last season was. Obviously, elephants in the room regarding the CBA and things like that, but the basketball is going to be all-time great. And I think it's going to be that for an extended period with 44 games this season. So I'm ready to get to it. How about you?
I'm feeling amped. You had your first Mercury train this week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was feeling amped just about that exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Golden State Mercury or a Golden State media member sitting next to me, and it never, ever gets old when all those people are on the court and the new people are looking at me like, what the heck is going on over there? And I'm just kind of telling them, oh, no, it's what we do here, This
is normal.
Yeah, this is very normal. And, you're not going to see it on a Fever game, but, when they host the Wings, I won't be shocked if there's a nice little Mercury train. And you know what I always wonder is the opposing team, they got to be just so confused and lacking so much focus in that timeout. You know what I mean?
That was the fun part for me because I don't know if Alyssa was expecting it when it happened. I don't know if anyone even made her aware. I'm sure someone did, but the reaction she got made it seem as if this was like a, wow, what in the world is going on? Like, can I, I know it's preseason. Can I, go hop in real quick? Like, her and Kahleah were, you could tell Kahleah was like, oh, yeah, this is what we do here. And Alyssa's, taking it in like a culture type of thing. So it was fun to see that. I wish I recorded that interaction, but it was fun to see Kahleah going from last season being brought into it to now her teaching other people about it.
Like, these are our traditions. This is, like you said, this is what we do here.
It's the culture.
Yeah, and, it is a one-of-a-kind experience, and for those of you that are unfamiliar, the Mercury does a thing at a lot of home games called the Mercury Train, and they invite everyone in the crowd, doesn't matter where you're sitting, what kind of ticket you have, you're allowed on the court. They do a little conga line, and then they kick you off about 45 seconds into it. It's an awesome 35 to 45 seconds, and I can't imagine the work that goes into it on the operations side of things, of scooting people in and then quickly off the court. So huge shouts to the Mercury for just making, the fans one with the team, and really, we can talk all day about team chemistry and team culture, but it's obvious when you come to the Valley and you go to a game in Phoenix that it spreads to the crowd and the attendees as well, and the fans feel like they're a part of the team here, and it's just something that's very special. I would argue really one of a kind in the WNBA.
It is, and it's a identity stamping kind of mark. It's something unique from anyone else. Some teams have mascots that are well known,
and we love Scorch too, but
for sure. But obviously, Ellie is like the face of mascots in the W now. Some teams have team rituals that they get into, like the Aces and them pregame and the things that they do. Some teams, like the Chicago Sky, the last couple of seasons have been doing things similar to what the Aces do. The Mercury have their own thing where they bring their fans the X Factor and they make them feel like they're a part of the experience, which is what everything that Matt Ishbia has spoken to, wanting to implore even more going into this new era.
Well, and then also you got the squad out at the Fry's grocery stores yesterday, you know, doing I want to say it's called like swap places or something like that, where they go out and they help the community, and they're just one with the community, and it's something really cool. They all go work grocery store jobs. I don't know that you can say that they work the grocery store jobs, but I mean, you got Kahleah and Alyssa Thomas out there making mocha frappuccinos for fans. One of a kind experience. You're not going to get that anywhere else.
Yeah, that was very different, and that's how you get integrated into a community, by literally going and being a part of the community and through service more than anything else.
Well, the Mercury has done a lot of good this week in terms of community work and all this, that, and other, but they also went 0-2 in the preseason. And 2 pretty tight games, might I add. In classic Phoenix sports fashion, they had to hand the Valkyries their first ever franchise win. Preseason, so I guess it doesn't really count, but I feel like it's a very Phoenix sports thing to do, to give a franchise their first ever victory. But more so about the Mercury, like, I think that the general population is going to see that 0-2 in the preseason and be like, oh, they're middle of the pack, not mediocre at best. And watch those 2 preseason games. Watch what Nate Tibbetts, the birthday boy, might I add you, has been able to do with that offense as well as the defense. And they're going to think, well, it's going to be a mediocre team. And I don't think that, after speaking with, you know, Satou and Mac after the game versus the Valkyrie, I don't think I feel that same way. But I'd love to know, after, you know, seeing them for two games now, where do you think this Mercury team is at?
I would hope that anybody that watched those 2 preseason games doesn't take away that this team is going to be mediocre, because for all intents and purposes, if we're speaking about the context we saw against the Aces, who had the lead going into halftime?
The Mercury. And
when were the starters playing the majority of that game against the Aces?
Yeah, in the second half, the starters did not play. Correct. Other than Natasha Mack.
Correct. So copy and paste that to the Valkyries game, obviously a different team, but who had the lead at halftime?
Well, and then not to mention the fact that Kahleah was out the entire game.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's a lot of context to be added to those 2 losses in the preseason.
Exactly. And I don't, like, if that's the lens that people want to look at it through in terms of the win-loss record, it is the preseason. But at least apply the context of what you saw over the course of the game, when who can be deemed as the main rotation players were in the game. They were dominant in stretches against the Las Vegas Aces, who played everybody in their rotation for that game. Obviously, it's preseason for them too, but if we're talking about comparing and contrasting, they held up fairly well against one of the teams that's expected to contend again this season, and against the best group against the Valkyries. Obviously, they had injuries, but they were dominant in that game, especially on the defensive end. So,
yeah, I don't think it really lowered my ceiling for this team at all. If anything, it made me think both games made me think higher of our bench. Personally, I think, you know, there's some tough decisions to be made today. The Mercury is one of the last teams to announce their final opening day roster. And I'm not really super surprised by that. We're on the West Coast, for crying out loud. I think us and the Mercury and the Storm are the last 2 teams, if I'm not mistaken. And the Storm might have actually already posted theirs. And the Mercury is going to have to cut at least 1 player today, maybe 2, to get down to that 12 to start the season. And not to mention that there's still players coming from overseas, and I'm not ruling them out of being on the opening day roster, even if they're not in the city of Phoenix right now, which is, I think, a very unique situation to the Mercury. I think the only other team that has a situation kind of similar, maybe the Seattle Storm. But the Mercury is very much in a waiting game. And, you know, we're going to talk about our expectations and things like that, but there is a lot of context to be added about the fact that there are so many questions about the roster construction on this team and who's going to make the team, who's going to be the true backup PG or whatever you want to call it on this positionless basketball team we're going to watch for 44 games. But, you know, there's a lot of questions to be answered, and most of them will be answered by the end of the day when we get that completed Mercury roster.
Yeah, we'll probably know sometime by the end of practice, honestly, today. Just from the logistics side, I imagine that they're going to make that decision relatively soon. And in addition to that, though, I'm curious if, with obviously the entire league making roster changes and roster shifts and things like that, do they cut 3 instead of just 2 and have that open roster spot available to add more talent? Just spitballing off the top of my head, I'm curious if they go that route, or if they go into the season with the full 12-player roster and kind of rock out with what they have. obviously we'll get clarity on that in the next couple of hours, and it's gonna be a lot to kind of gauge from there, because it's gonna speak a lot to the trust and belief in the two players that have been overseas, obviously in Musa and Kit, but also will speak to maybe what they left more to be desired in individual players in the training camp realm. And for full context, which I had to get clarity for myself yesterday, the players that are assigned to rookie scale contracts is a different terminology, but it's still in the same lens of a training camp deal. So even though it is rookie scale, we learned yesterday that that's just because it's their first time in the league. They're still held to the same accountability as far as making a decision on making a roster or not as a training camp invitee would be. So just for context, for anybody that might be looking on different sites and seeing different terminology, some different terminology is in respect to experience in the league, but generally speaking, most players can still be cut from a training camp contract that aren't signed to an actual contract.
Yeah, and shout out to all of you guys for joining us in the chat. I love Home S adding that additional context about the preseason. Phoenix led in most quarters, in most categories for that matter. Mm-hmm. Most regular seasons games are not going to be decided by a wonky fourth quarter rotation, trying out players 14 through 18. I mean, you said it yourself, players 14 through 18. That doesn't even exist in the regular season of the WNBA. So, yeah, the Mercury are more than fine. I'm not worried, especially when... Actually, I do want to ask you, Stephen, about Kahleah and her back. You know, I don't really want to speculate too much, but you've been at practice a little more than I have, a lot more than I have, actually. But do you think that the back thing is something that Mercury fans should be worried about, or are you optimistic that it's a rest situation and that it's something that, you know, we'll see improve drastically once the season starts?
Mm-hmm. Well, because it's something that is not new injury-wise for her, every player has a recurrent injury in some capacity. Correct. So it's nothing to ring the alarm about. So, yes, there is something to warrant about it. I'm not worried about it, though. I think that it's something that just kind of flared up. You know, training camp is arduous because you're going from not having played an intense level of basketball on a day-to-day basis. Might be individual workouts, but you're not going through making defensive rotations to playing through contact and a 5-on-5 style to the same levels. That's why the training camp and preseason portion of the schedule is so important. It's a ramp up to obviously everything that the regular season is going to be. And I think it's just kind of something that comes with the ebbs and flows of that transition from off-season to training camp and preseason play. Lots of minutes logged, and especially for a team like Kahleah's on that has a ton of newness, you have to be available for those practice days so you can build that chemistry and build that rapport that you need, especially as an important player like she is. So it's nothing to like ring the alarm about for me. Keep an eye on it, I guess I would say, but that could be copied and pasted to every player because every player has injuries that they're working through. People have injuries on their day-to-day life that they have to keep an eye out on. So nothing to worry about from me.
Yeah, my concussion still is not yet improved. You know what I'm saying?
That's an example. For sure. Some people have lower back pain when they get out of bed every morning. Some people have to stretch before they can actually start walking. Like, it's just like no different for Kahleah than it is for anybody else in their day-to-day life for me. So hopefully that suppresses a lot of the...
I'm not really worried about it, truthfully.
For sure.
I mean...
People on the timeline.
Oh, they are all worried about everything.
Hopefully my explanation helps to ease some of that anxiety, but...
I just want y'all to know that yesterday, Stephen and I were discussing whether or not I should include something in a tweet. And I said, we already get cussed out in Portuguese every day. What's one little picture? Like, who cares? So
relevant. That's relevant too.
You know, y'all are very funny on the timeline. I have to give y'all that. Kazian, I hope I'm saying that right in the chat. One underrated part I seen was the rebounding. Last year, we were 11th. The first two teams, we out-rebounded the other teams by 10 or more. Period. And heavy on the period part of that, because what is Stephen and I have been just screaming about since the end of last season, even during last season, is putting a period on those defensive possessions and getting those rebounds to create more opportunity for the team. And that's exactly what we've seen them do. So while I wasn't super satisfied with the result of those games, I was satisfied as to how we got there and have full belief that it will turn, the tide will turn in these games once the season starts. and you get, Alyssa Thomas for 36 minutes of a game and Satou Sabally for 35 minutes. And I mean, we're talking about a completely different team taking the court versus the Storm on Saturday than what we've seen for the last 2 weeks. So I'm not super concerned. If anything, I'm extremely optimistic about what's to come for the Mercury's future. And Lindsay, you already know, I already gave Nader Todd a huge shout for his birthday. I'm going to guess it's his 40th birthday or something along those lines. I'm not exactly sure how old Nader Todd is. But yeah, like Lindsay said in the comments, happy birthday to Girl Dad himself. #1 challenger, the only male girl dad finger waver in the league. You know what I'm saying? So huge shouts to that guy. Happy birthday. Friend of the show, And like I said on Twitter, he would be asking y'all to tap in, give us a like, leave a comment on today's show. So be sure to do that wherever you're doing this from, wherever you're watching your podcast from. Give us a 5-star review. But, Stephen.
Also become a diehard.
Oh, yeah. Duh, we got something coming. We got something cooking in the kitchen for today.
Yeah, a nice little bit of things on the way. And you want to be involved in that exclusive, our version of X Factor.
And I mean,
be a part of that.
I literally told y'all earlier this year that you would not catch me ranking players just because of the scrutiny we may get. But luckily, ours is going to be behind a little paywall, so you got to become a diehard to see it. So I can't be subject to that much scrutiny. Only a little light, fire on my rear end.
Our diehards are rightfully feisty.
And love them for it.
And that's why we think it's a great opportunity to have this conversation with them. And to really kind of set a tone for the season to come, because there's going to be a lot of conversations to be had.
Yeah. So like he said, become a diehard. It's the first link down in the description. Not prescription, but I am prescribing you to be a diehard. So head down to that link below and become a diehard today. There was an ESPN article put out this morning.
Another one.
Yeah, another one. The 2025 power rankings for the teams. And the Phoenix Mercury was landed at #7. Shane, if you want to go ahead and show that graphic I sent you in. To keep things short, I could read the whole thing, but you could also go to ESPN.com and read the entirety of the article. Yeah. They're concerned about the big three and the continuity of the big three. And it's something we've kind of talked about all season or all off season, since the announcement that these two players were going to be coming here. But being that the 3 players in discussion, Satou Sabally, Alyssa Thomas, and Kahleah Copper, we're going to get into, the GM rankings and that later. But those 3 players are 3 of the most versatile players in the league. So I guess my head scratch as to, everyone else's concerns about this big 3 comes from, okay, we've talked about them being the most versatile players in the league, some of the most versatile players in the league. How does it make sense for them to not work out well together? It doesn't. Everyone's concerns about them just don't really make sense to me, in the sense that, again, we've talked about how they can all do it all on the offensive end, and they're all stretches on the defensive end. So how can they not fit together well as a puzzle together as a big 3?
I think most of the questions that I'm seeing from conversation on Twitter and from other media members, maybe on the more so mainstream side of things than specifics of Phoenix, I think people are having questions about how quickly will they be able to establish a winning formula going forward, as in how much time is it going to take for them to integrate one of another 2 different lineups to the style of play. And also, in addition to that, the depth questions that people have had as well. Those aren't the questions that I have about the Mercury this season, but I can see why people might have those. And especially when it comes to the guard group in particular, obviously independent of Kahleah Copper. Some people see her as a wing. Some people see her as a guard. I just call her a great basketball player. I think that's the best way to put it. You get too specific, a capital B bucket. You can say that too. But independent of Kahleah, a lot of people are questioning what else can they get from the guard group. And that remains to be seen. That's a fair question to be asked. So if that's the lens that you want to look at things through, I understand why people might put them 7th. I would personally have them 6th or 5th, but I don't think 7th is anything to scoff at, considering they have so much newness, and there's teams that have continuity as an advantage that they don't going into the season.
Shout out to Willie G. Ramirez joining us in the comments today. Yes, everybody does forget about Kalani Brown and the addition that she is to this team. Her work ethic is impeccable.
Yep.
And like Willie says in the comments, these players don't have zero experience together, you know?
No.
All three of them played in Unrivaled.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them were on the Olympic team together last year and played versus Satou in the Olympics.
Yep.
And so, you know, I'm not as concerned about the chemistry piece as everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest question, like you said, stems in the guard play.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know who the starting lineup is going to be at this current moment. We can guess, we can make guesstimations, predictions, but truly we don't know who that starting core is going to be, and if it's going to stay consistent, and if Nate's going to see one thing and really, really like it and let it go for the rest of the season, or if you make changes a few games in, because like we've hammered, there are so much newness around this team. I won't be shocked if on Saturday we see one starting lineup and then come the next game we see something completely different outside of the big three.
I'm not sure if they go to that so soon in the season. I think that might be something where they're, as naturally teams do over the course of a season, and they've been blessed with 4 more games to gather information in the regular season before getting to a playoff context of play. I think they're going to be information gathering. So getting lineup data on specific groupings through the first quarter of the season. And then that second quarter, looking at who it is they have in the schedule, seeing, okay, maybe we played this first team with this rendition of our lineup or our rotation. Let's see what we can do with this group, and just kind of piece by piece through the course of the season, again, collecting lineup data, collecting player grouping data. This player works better when this player's on the court. Maybe Sammy Wickham works better when she's on the court with Kalani Brown because of Kalani Brown's gravity in the post, and now that opens up Sammy for backside threes. Maybe Sammy works better with Alyssa because she can set screens and do things like that for Alyssa that compromise the defense. Like little things like that I feel like are going to be what they're trying to learn over the course of the season, data collecting, and then looking to apply it all down that home stretch post All-Star break where you get towards the fourth quarter of the regular season.
Well, and then ESPN's got them getting to 19.5 wins. Do you think that's a little low, a little high? Do you think that's just right for this team? I mean, they won 19 games last year. I personally am expecting them to win 25 or more games, personally. But I would love to know your thoughts on the 19-win prediction.
19 seems low, especially if we're considering that they have them ranked 7th. I don't know if 19 games gets you 7th in the league come playoff time.
They were 8th. They were the 8th seed last year, correct?
They were 7. They were 7, yeah. But like to that point though, if I'm saying that I think they're going to be 4 or 5, 6 range, I think it's going to take 23 wins. So I think they're between 23 and 25. So in the same ballpark of games won that you're speaking to, I think a lot of it is going to be contingent upon how quickly do they get out the gate. Is it a slow build-up where they start off 2-3, 2-4, but they're learning about each other and now they're able to apply those lessons as you go from quarter 1 to quarter 2 of the season, and now they go from maybe 2-4 to that second quarter stretch, they go like 6-2, and they beat a couple of teams that are in that contending realm relative to the schedule. I think depending on how that goes, maybe they get to 25, maybe they get to 22, but I think that if they get out the gate sooner, they can get closer to 25 or potentially more just off of that alone.
Last year, I feel like the rankings were very top-heavy. The Liberty and the Lynx were obviously the best teams in the league. Do you think that it's going to be that the gap is going to be that big between the second and third team again, or do you think that the league will be less top heavy this year? Because I personally think it will be less top heavy just because of all the player movement we saw. I think it's going to be even more there's going to be even more parity this year, I think, which is really saying something. I feel like last year teams were scraping to fight for that 4 to 8 spot. And now this year they're going to be like, everyone is going to be vying for that 6 to 9 because that's, like I said, it's just going to be a little less top heavy.
Are you speaking from a preseason ranking standpoint or where last season ended at the regular season?
Where last season ended at the regular season.
And I'm asking because remember last year we spoke a lot about the Minnesota Lynx surprising people. And for anybody that was watching us, if you were listening, you wouldn't have been surprised at where they finished the season. They finished within literal possessions Not a quarter, not a game, not a series. Literal possessions of winning the championship last season. And it shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody. They didn't make any trades. All they did was make free agent moves, stuck it out, got healthy through the season, and they surprised everybody. I can see the Phoenix Mercury being the team that has a similar type of impact to that if things hit the way that they need to, and more than anything, they have health that works in their favor. Yes, they stay healthy, they build the continuity, they have enough top-end talent, and I think they have enough role players in a complementary way to play off of them to help to bridge the gap, keep things afloat. But speaking to your question, that's what I wanted to ask. I think there is going to be a lot more parity this season. So I think there's going to be a lot more ebbs and flows throughout the season in terms of ESPN's power rankings that they do weekly, and also just looking at how teams stack up against one another. I think that we might not necessarily see a team that just is outright better in terms of two teams like the Lynx and Liberty were last season. I think that gap is going to be shrunk, to your point, because more teams will be able to compete with them in the regular season in ways that they just weren't able to last year. Look at a team like Atlanta. Obviously, they've already had some injuries with Jordan Canada. She'll be back within the next 2 weeks, more than likely, but they have a lot of change. But they're better on paper because of the changes that they made. You can look at a team like the Phoenix Mercury. They're not going into the season with injuries. Hopefully, Kahleah Copper's all good to go. That's different than last season, starting without Brittany Griner, having Diana Taurasi kind of up and down and in and out, and Rebecca Allen in and out. You know, those things matter. You can look at another team as well, looking at Dallas. Dallas had injuries last season, a bunch of rookies, a bunch of ambiguity. They have some continuity going into this season with Erika and obviously having Tierra McCowan and some other players that have been around. Head coaching changes, things like that. It's a lot of difference. It's just things are very different in the league now. So that parity is going to make things a lot more competitive.
I really think that the gap will get a little bit smaller this year.
Yep.
Not a lot maybe, but because I still think that the Lynx and the Liberty are going to be the best teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the gap will be smaller, and it'll be obvious when you're watching games against them.
For
and
sure.
You know, interestingly enough, I feel like the Mercury kind of had the Liberty's number last year, but you never know what's going to happen this year. You know, on the flip side, the Wings had the Mercury's number last year. No matter what the Mercury did, they just could not get through the Wings. And so I'm going to be interested to see, you know, who that team is, that top team that the Mercury has their number this year. I hope it's the Lynx, because they struggled so badly with the Lynx during multiple stretches of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never forget the Kahleah Copper game winner early in the season last year. Don't front. We didn't have all the problems with the Lynx, but you know, it's going to be an interesting year as far as matchups in the league.
Yeah, and that's part of the parity, and that's why this playoffs this season are going to be as electric as ever before, because the point that you made about one team having another team's number, I think that teams will be able to adjust over the course of the season for specific matchups. And that's going to make the playoffs just.
I also think the coaching improved in the league this year. So
yes.
I think to your point,
mm-hmm.
they're going to be out coaching, you know, from their last matchup. And so I think it's going to be a much more interesting season, where it's not going to be like, oh, here comes the Sun to beat the Wings for the third time this season. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to make for that parity point that you speak to be something that prevails pretty much all season long. Is going to be an operative word all season long.
Well, we're going to get to the GM polls here in just a moment. I think that there's some really interesting nuggets regarding the Mercury in there. But before we do that, I want to get our bills paid. So all of this and more after the break. Mountain America Credit Union. Everyone needs a checking account. Get the account with built-in benefits. Mountain America's My Style checking account has perks just for you. You can enjoy restaurant deals, mobile phone protection, telehealth access, identity protection, loan rate discounts, offers on travel and events, and more. Make My Style your lifestyle at Mountain America Credit Union. Visit macu.com/mystyle to apply. Membership is required based on eligibility. Some benefits require no-cost registration/activation. Terms and conditions do apply. Oh, no. And then Circle K. America's Third Stop. You guys know I'm a big fan of Circle K. I have multiple gas cards that I use quite frequently.
Multiple gas cards from multiple locations, because Circle K is literally everywhere.
It's like a gas station or no, what's the liquor store in the north? You know what I mean? Liquor stores and churches are just Circle K's down here in Arizona.
What's more prevalent? Walgreens, CVS, or
Circle K? 100% Circle K.
1000%.
If I need something at night, I'm not hitting up those places. Those are in scary areas. I'm gonna find a nice, safe Circle K that I can walk into by myself with my earbuds in. Anyways, America's Thirst Stop, joining the Inner Circle, free membership program. It's easy to download. You just download the Circle K app, enter your email and phone number to be fully enrolled. After that, all you need is your phone number to get your deals. Save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, and then 3 cents every gallon after that. And you can work your way back up to 5 cents a gallon on all your gallons. I'm up to 5 gallons, plus I got a little gas card. I'm up to 15 cents off a gallon. But you can get any size Polar Pop for 79 cents. And plus just all the other snacks there, peanuts, almonds, gummy candies, whatever you need, Circle K's got it. And all you've got to do is have that app. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details.
What's your favorite Circle K snack?
Gummy worms, duh.
The sour ones?
I do prefer the sour ones, but one thing about Erika, I love gummy snacks. Any of them.
Okay.
You know, they got the Shack gummies there. I love the Shack gummies. They're huge. I don't know why you know what? I was going to say I don't know why they made them so big, but let me just stop.
Of course, because you almost told on yourself right there. I'll save you, and I'll go ahead and answer my own question. Blue Sharks, for me, the Blue Sharks are fire. It's like a blue raspberry flavor, but it's not like an overwhelming blue raspberry flavor. It's just get straight to the point.
Some of y'all know that I am addicted to caffeine, and I used to come on the show drinking highly caffeinated, carbonated beverages every single show.
And always give us a warning beforehand.
Yeah, that it affects everyone really, you know, when I'm high, like on caffeine like that. So I'm 4 weeks caffeinated
sober
beverage free. All I've been drinking is coffee, and I'm not gonna lie, someone in our office this morning asked us if I wanted one, and I'm like, I felt like a recovering cigarette addict, you know what I mean? I'm like, ooh, don't blow that smoke in my face, please. Yeah, I miss you. No free ads, but that carbonated beverage, I do miss you every single day. But these GM surveys, I had to laugh because the GM surveys of 2024 obviously resurface because everyone wants to compare the last year's surveys to this year's surveys. So all over my timeline right now, there's 2025 surveys and then snippets of 2024 surveys, and everyone being like, these GMs don't know what they're talking about. And in the end, it's just kind of funny because it just gives us more to talk about. So without further ado,
they've never come up short of that. I can say that in great confidence.
They don't. And, you know, it's not to say it's terrible, but they got to say something. So, you know, we got to give them that. But Shane's going to help us by showing these results. So without further ado, first and foremost, which player is likely to have a breakout season? Now, 20% of GM said Satou Sabally out of Phoenix. I think this is interesting because Satou Sabaly's already won the Most Improved Player award, correct? And so I don't think I think of her when I think of an athlete poised to have a breakout season. I also think it's interesting that she wins the vote with only 20% of the vote. Also receiving votes are Maddie Siegrist in Dallas, Marina Mabrey in Connecticut, Kelsey Plum in the LA, Gabby Williams in Seattle, Aaliyah Boston in Indiana, Rakia Jackson in LA, Ryan Howard in ATL, and Brittany Griner in ATL. And I am kind of giggling because I feel like the only of those players that's really poised, quote, to have a breakout season is Rakia Jackson. I mean, all of those other players that they just listed are kind of notable in their own sense and have been in the past before. So I don't think I think of any of those players when I think of a breakout season.
Yeah, outside of Rakia, I don't feel like anybody else fits for
and Rakia barely
breakout. Exactly. Like I feel like I understand ESPN side.
I do, yes.
If anything, this should have been tabbed the "Oh, y'all forgot about me" type of breakout season. If that's what you want to go about, because there's just no way.
We should do our own awards at the end of the season.
I agree.
And I Forgot About You award is definitely one of them.
Yeah, because last season it would have been Kahleah McBride.
Right, correct. It sure would have been that automatic 3-point sniper out of. Yep, correct. But yeah, I just don't think any of them are quote breakout athletes that I guess Rickea in a sense because she wasn't Rookie of the Year and whatever else.
That's the only reason why she makes the slightest bit more sense than
but
anybody
even Aaliyah
else.
Boston was a Rookie of the Year a season ago.
The way Fever fans talk about AB,
it's nasty work. I'm not.
So maybe she does fit the criteria more than I thought, based off of that alone. How you disrespect somebody? Yeah. Aaliyah Boston, just say her name.
I've told you the story about me coming to, I just want to make sure because AB best never be disrespected in this particular house.
Yeah, I'm thankful for Mercury fans not being cut from that particular cloth.
Correct.
I'll say that.
But Satou Sabally, this breakout season, do you think that's a possibility?
It's possible. I think that if the Mercury are going to be where they hope to be at the end of the regular season and at the end of the season as a whole, it's going to need a whole lot of Satou. And I think we've seen enough from the regular season or from the preseason.
6 for 11 from
6 for 11 from 3. Never hesitated to take any of those attempts.
She was looking like Sammy Whitcomb out there.
Yes, she spent plenty of time at the rim in the paint. Did not have a problem going to her midi. Which, for everybody that thought Nate was out of his mind for saying what he said, I tried to warn y'all that's not going to be the literal way that they're operating on offense. And she takes like 6 or 7 middies and knocks down like 4 of them.
You know that people on the internet don't understand hyperbole, correct? It gets me in trouble all the time, and now it's gotten you in trouble. I'm actually sorry that it, did in that context.
I don't mind getting in trouble if I'm informing people. That's what I'm here to do anyway. So
we literally were talking about it pregame ahead of the game versus the Valkyries on Sunday. The quote unquote manure strip, aka the midi, it's not going to go away. It's just not going to be the first option, as it should not be for this particular team. And I see a lot of people talking about how Nate isn't going to be coaching to the roster that he has, and I just can't disagree more, because if you know that these players are capable of making those shots, why would you not set them up for success? And then if they can't get that shot open, if they can't get the three-pointer that they want, okay, then push Ka to push into the paint and get what she wants out of her defender. But at the end of the day, they need to be running the offense that they want. And if they know that they can hit the 3, then they might as well set it up to get the 3 in the first place. And if it doesn't work, then they go to their other options.
That's called a process. That's a process. Get the defense to respect this shot because you know that we're willing to and capable of taking and making said shots. And then when you eventually get to a point where, because we're shooting said shot efficiently, and that's what we're hunting out before anything else, now this is where you're at your best, because it's not about being a puncher. It's about how well do you counterpunch. And if your counterpunch is Alyssa Thomas shooting floaters and things like that below the free throw line, Kahleah Copper shooting middies and countering people playing off of closeouts from her there, Satou Sabally doing the exact same thing that we just got done speaking to with Kahleah Copper. Now you have a process. Now you have counterpunches. A team can only be right so many times.
Exactly.
If you sell out to take away the three-point line, unlike most teams, the Mercury have 3 players that can excel at working in the mid-range and below the free throw line, doing so effectively and efficiently. That shot is going to be more prevalent come playoff time, but we still will see it in the regular season, which I spoke to in the video that I recorded last week. Hope that helps for everybody that is intentionally misunderstanding what's going on with the process of an offense. That is all.
Stephen has me weak today. Okay. Next on the GM survey, which player acquisition will make the biggest impact? Taking 50% of the vote is Alyssa Thomas, 30% of the vote is Kelsey Plum, and then coming in third with 20% of the vote is Satou Sabally. So 70% of the vote going to the Phoenix Mercury, which is hilarious, because I think later in the votes there is a point that talks about who has the biggest splash in the offseason, and nowhere mentioned is the Phoenix Mercury. So very interesting that 70% of the player acquisition is coming from the Phoenix Mercury, but nevertheless
I thought that part was funny too. I'm surprised that Jewel Lloyd didn't stake more claim of these top 3 percentage getters in terms of acquisition making the biggest impact.
Yeah.
I think her shot making in particular is going to be something that has a spotlight on it come playoff time for the Aces, but I can see these three being in that group. I'm not surprised by it at all. I think Alyssa is rightfully first. She could have honestly got 60 or 70% of that because she's just that great and still somehow underrated in multiple respects by the masses. I think people are a little bit too in love with jump shots and three-point shooting in particular, and have like a lazy eye or a blind eye to the maybe not so pretty things that are more conducive to sustain winning. And that's where Alyssa's greatness, for those that have that eye, shines through. And she's very much one of those players. Can't speak about top fives over the last 7 or 8 years and not have Alyssa be included in it.
Well, and the player I was surprised to see not on the list was BG with Atlanta. Yeah. I mean, I just think with the style of basketball they're going to be able to play because of her. I can't imagine leaving her off that list if I'm the one making the vote.
Yeah, I can see that too for sure.
Yeah, I definitely can see where you're coming from with Jewel, but I was not surprised to see Alyssa at the top of the list, but I was surprised to see BG nowhere on it.
And two other names that I think make sense for that particular grouping as well. I think Ariel Atkins and Courtney Vandersloot, adding to what the Sky are looking to work towards, could obviously not more than any of the names that we just got done speaking to, but can certainly be lumped into that group of names, getting even if it's like 2 or 3% of that.
I just have to tell you, I was watching your Sky show the other day. I cannot express to you how much of a bigger fan of Courtney Vandersloot I am of her in Chicago than I was with her in New York. And maybe it's just because I hate New York teams. I don't know. But she scratches the itch now that she's in the striped uniform. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She's the most synonymous player with the Sky logo.
I love it.
Because of how much time she spent there and her successes there.
It has brought me great joy to see her back at home, welcoming baby, see her and Angel in the looking around. It was just adorable. And I cannot express how much I am so happy to see her hopefully finish out her career with Sky on a high note with some top-notch talent down there.
Yeah, I think she's where she wants to be, and she's in a situation that needs her as well. So.
She kind of has, it's her team, and it's a good situation for her because she can be a leader, but she doesn't have to be the most vocal person in the locker room. And so I think it's a perfect position for her to be in, and I think I'm just so happy for her to see her come into herself as a one of the elders of the league. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Next question we're going to talk about is the most versatile player in the WNBA. Coming in first is Napheesa Collier with 42% of the vote. I'm sorry, Shane. I must have lied to you on my list. We can go to that one next if you want. Yeah, player that is the most athletic. Number 1 is Kahleah Copper with 36% of the vote. Next is Brittany Sykes with 27% of the vote. And then Dominique Malonga with 18% of the vote. Also, did I say that right?
No, you said it right. I'm just laughing because...
her receiving the votes and she didn't even play the game.
No, it's not even that. It's just she's such a... Like, Satou is the unicorn, but the unicorn to the unicorn junior. It's Malonga. I don't think anybody, like, Kahleah may have it next season, but after that, it's about to be Malonga's.
I just want to know, I'm like genuinely scared for... she threatened the whole league with that dunk comment, and they're going to be the first team to come set foot in the PHX arena.
Alyssa is not allowing... nor is Kahleah, nor is Satou, nor is Kalani. But
on that note,
it would be intriguing to see how it might come about. I just don't think it comes against this Mercury team. They care entirely too much about defense, and they're gonna be at home. I don't see it.
I'm sick if that happens. Just know you'll look over at me just, So I hope that doesn't happen. Also receiving votes though are Napheesa Collier and A'ja Wilson. I think Kahleah is the most athletic player in the league.
Yeah.
I think we were laughing before the show. Our producer, Shane, huge shouts to him. He's a very busy guy today. So shouts to him for probably doing the show we've had with the most assets ever in PHNX Mercury podcast history. So huge shouts to him for being the busiest guy ever today and helping us out.
How is Gabby Williams not on this list?
Yes. I was surprised.
A literal Olympic level athlete in
Brittany
other
Sykes
non-basketball respects.
And not.
Crazy.
And that is no Brittany Sykes disrespect
not even a little bit.
All.
I feel like those should have been the top 3. And
but
Malonga
I just couldn't believe.
Into the group.
Yeah. That was my thing is Malonga hasn't played a game in the league yet.
For sure.
So I couldn't believe that they were listing her in the ways that they were. I can understand because her skill set, her assets, she's going to be a very good player in this league. period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I was a little shocked as to the GM's warm welcome to her in these voting categories.
Yeah. I think it's hers to lose going forward. Maybe if not next season, the season after that for sure. But I think the top three should have been Kai, Brittany Sykes, and Gabby Williams. That would have been what made the most sense in that order in particular.
And then for real this time, the player with the best basketball IQ coming in at first is Chelsea Gray in Las Vegas. Oop. No, it's okay, Shane. Chelsea Gray in Las Vegas with 36% of the vote. Caitlin Clark in Indiana with 18% of the vote. Courtney Vandersloot in Chicago with another 18% of the vote. And then Fee, Alyssa Thomas, and Stewie also receiving votes in this category. Now, let me tell you something. If anyone other than the point god would have taken spot number 1 in this category, I would have just ignored it. We wouldn't even mention it on the show because I would have been just too grumpy about it to even discuss it. Chelsea Gray is the smartest basketball player in the league right now. That is subject to change. And, you know, Caitlin Clark is very young, 23 or 24 years old. Like, there's a lot of room for growth here. But Chelsea Gray is the smartest basketball player, and you saw it in the 2023 finals when her team won without her while she's sitting over on the bench being Coach Gray. But Alyssa being mentioned in this category is also one and the same. Absolutely correct. You can't have an MVP conversation without at least bringing up Alyssa Thomas. Alyssa Thomas' basketball IQ is that high. She's the engine for a reason. And that's because everything on the team goes through her because she sees everything developing before it's happening. This might be a good time for us to play that video of Sammy talking about her.
We'll get to it in a few minutes.
But I just think that, you know, Alyssa is the brains behind the operation and was in Connecticut and will continue to do so just like that here in Phoenix.
Yeah, for every bit of how great and how brilliant Chelsea Gray is on the offensive end, Alyssa Thomas is equally, if you copy and paste and inverse that, the way she looks at offense is no different than how Alyssa looks at defense. And because of that, respect, obviously, one of the all-time great point guards in Courtney Vandersloot. Respect the budding legend to come, legend to be that Caitlin Clark is. Alyssa has to have been in that top 3 for me. Because you can't be the level of player that she is and have some of the quote unquote weaknesses that she has in terms of not being a 3-point shooter or not being a threat from deep at all. Like you have to process the game so well to have impact in other respects to offset that to where you don't even look at it as a disadvantage when you bring her into your team. And I think that alone, in addition to the values that she adds defensively, she should have been in that top 3. That makes no sense to me.
Are you
and that's no
Caitlin
slight or
Sloot?
Disrespect. I would take Sloot down. But if we're basing it off of what we've seen in recent memory and specifically last season, you know, that's where I'm at on that. I'm not mad at Caitlin.
CC off that list because of her triple-double nonsense and that, and the other.
I'm not mad at Caitlin being on that list because the pressure she put on teams last season with just the way that she was thinking and passing the game post All-Star break as a counter to all of the attention and gravity that she has with the ball in her hands, that's brilliance in and of itself. And she was always ahead of a defense. That's why they got to where they got to post All-Star break and they lost like 5 or 6 games. So she is who she is. She's brilliant and her skill matches the way she sees the game. I think it makes sense to have 2 point guards there, those 2 in particular. But somewhere in that mix in that top 3 should have been Alyssa Thomas for me. Because you saw who they lost to in the first round. And they don't lose to the Connecticut Sun in the first round without the brilliance on the defensive end from Alyssa Thomas, which we'll be getting to shortly.
And then the very last player, the most versatile player in the WNBA, coming in at number 1 is Napheesa Collier with 42% of the vote. And number 2 is Stewie with 25% of the vote. And then also receiving votes is Jackie Young, Gabby Williams, Satou Sabally, and Erika LeDay. I'm going to be real with you. There's at least one name on this list that I don't think should have even been mentioned. And it's Jackie for me personally. I think Satou is a very versatile player. I don't think Stewie did it enough for me last season to be number 2 on the list, but I do think she's on the list. But I think Satou is the unicorn for a reason. I just think the recency bias kind of killed her in these voting categories a little bit because of the Olympic situation and the wing situation last year.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why Alyssa Thomas wasn't on this list again.
Yeah, and kind of same with Kahleah, right? Like
Kahleah to a different extent, but Alyssa in particular for me because Nate just got done talking about her playing 5 positions.
Correct.
And that's not unrealistic because that's quite literally what she's been doing her entire career on offense or on defense. You need her to set screens, she can do that. You need her to use screens as a point guard in a sense, she can do that. You need her to play point guard, she can do that. Play out the post, that's cool. Play in isolation, she can do that too. In transition, that's fine. Grab a rebound and go into the offense herself without having to pass it to a guard, she can do that. Switch on the perimeter, she can do that. Guard a point guard, guard a 2, 3, 4, 5. Switch onto any of those. Guard 3 of those positions within 24 seconds. Protect the rim. Be a great help defender. Be the leader of a team. All-time level communicator. What more can you ask for?
Chat, clip that.
I'm just. If we're talking about versatility, she embodies it. She literally embodies it. And the only people that might do it the slightest bit of a percentage more is someone at the 4 position like Breanna Stewart or Asia Wilson. Maybe Nafisa Kahleah, but she wears hers differently than those first 3 that we got done speaking to.
I would agree that all of the players that you just spoke to look way different on the court than from one another. But sure. Alyssa Thomas definitely is the name that should have been on this list that was not brought up. And but by that metric, there are 2 names on this list that you can probably completely negate and get out of here.
Yeah.
And
sure.
That, again, no slight to those players.
Nope,
Fantastic basketball players.
There's greatness in specific skills, and there's other people that have that greatness sprinkled across multiple skills. And that's quite literally what versatility is. And that's also not specific to one side of the ball, which I think gets lost in translation, which is very unfortunate, but that's what I'm here to kind of shine light on.
Somebody make Stephen a voter before it's too late, you know? Get this man a ballot.
Yeah, I would love to. That's what I'm hoping for.
But Stephen, like I said earlier, you have been at practice a little more than I have.
Mm-hmm.
The team's about to start regular season play this Saturday versus the Seattle Storm, which, by the way, now that we're discussing this game against the Seattle Storm real quick, I should mention the fact that we're doing a post-game show. And you should get your eyes, ears, everything ready. I told a few of the diehards at the game on Sunday that we were going to be doing this, but this is your very first notification. If you're watching this show right now, you got to be here on Saturday night after the game versus Seattle Storm. It is I want to say our first post game that isn't inside of a playoff relativity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super stoked for this. Expect a few more of these throughout the season than last year. So I'm super excited. Steven's going to be coming to us live with clips of Nate and Lord knows who else talking to us. Hopefully he's not bringing me back down to earth after, starting the season off with a loss, but you never know, but it's going to be a fun hour in either way. You know what I mean?
It is.
So I'm super excited to get back on that post-game grind and be in the studio with Steven, be up in Phoenix, watching our team, pour their heart out and hopefully walk away with the W in this first game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But on that same note, you've kind of seen the way the big 3 have come together in theory and practice and things like that. And you've talked to a lot of people, whether it be assistant coaches and other players, about, watching them come together and what to expect from them throughout this season. How do I want to say this? What do you expect to see for this team's identity to be immediately coming into the season?
It's all on the defensive end of the floor. They're going to be a defensive-minded team. They hope to be. Alyssa mentioned on media today to me that she's hoping that they're planning to be the best defensive team in the league. Initially, she said top 3, spoke a couple of words, a couple of sentences, and then checked herself and said, "No, we plan to be the best defensive team in the league." And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility because of who it is that's saying that and everything that she represents to a defense. So if we could go ahead and get the clip from practice where we had Coach Vogel speaking to the value that Alyssa Thomas brings from for defense, you get a coach's perspective on her impact. Third.
All of those details are really important. We talk about angles, we talk about where they're being set, how they're being set, the matchups that we want. We're asking our players to do a lot of things IQ-wise and see things, and we'll continue to grow as we kind of just learn how to play with each other, where we want the ball, how we want to get screened. All that just takes time. We've been together 12 practices. So I think we're farther than we probably thought we'd be in certain circumstances. So hopefully we can continue to grow.
So excuse us, that's coach speaking specifically to Alyssa being able to run pick and roll on offense, which speaks to the versatility point that we just got done speaking at length about and why she should have been in that top 3 in terms of percentage getters. But specific to the defensive side, where she's been a help in particular and is going to be the anchor and identifying piece for this team, this is what Coach Vogel had to say about Alyssa there.
AT's got a lot of freedom in our defense. She's one of the best defenders in our league. She's so physical. She's so smart. She sees things developing before they happen. So what I love is that she's a great teacher. So she has been helping all of our players really kind of get on board with how she plays, how she moves, what she sees, where she wants people. So I think, again, that's going to evolve as the season goes on. But, man, what an asset to have someone of her capability offensively be equally capable and intense on the defensive side.
So you add an all-time great defender, not just on the ball, not just in rim protection, but someone that can teach and communicate to the all-time levels that she can at practice, in the film room, and in real time as things are happening. You have a certain floor for your defense, and she's someone that's a leader in tandem with those skills that she has that's not going to allow for slippage. And maybe things that happened last season with the defense that just kind of went unaddressed or didn't go addressed to the extent that it needed to, she's not having it. And I think having a pillar like that on the defensive end that she is and she's already been, I think is going to help them. Pattern recognition, understanding player groupings and the different concepts that teams like to get to, understanding that, okay, if we're going against the aces, I know that Chelsea Gray and Alyssa and Asia Wilson like to go into empty corner pick and rolls. Let me be over here early at the block, or let me be early at the nail to shrink the floor on those players so that they don't have as much freedom to create whatever advantage it is that they're trying to get out of that, while also being smart enough to not just go off script to take away something on the strong side, but communicate that to the 2 defenders that she's on the same side of the court with so that they can have their bases covered and they don't concede a new advantage as they try to take away an advantage from the other side. Little things like that from her in particular is going to be what helps to shift the defensive context for the Mercury from being a team that did a lot of things defensively last season, but didn't necessarily see the efficiency from it. Now they'll be able to do even more and get a whole lot more efficiency and impact from that. Add an all-time great defender to your team, you're going to have a certain floor and your ceiling raises.
And I mean, you've seen it happening and working in real time of Alyssa being the teacher and the newbies, because there is a lot of newness on this team, being the students. And I think that's exactly what you need when you have a coach that is less experienced in the league and you have one of the most experienced players that is currently in the league. You have to put those minds together and help them work together. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing in real time, and it's going to work out very well. I'm sorry, I have to pause because what is with everybody getting Kahleah's career incorrect? Why does everybody think that she's only been in the league for 5 years?
I'm not sure.
Do I have to write a letter? Because I knew I had read this like in a few different places, and I went digging right now. 3 different places I've just managed to find in the last, while you were talking, that listed her as a 5-year vet. Am I missing a piece of the puzzle here? No, correct?
For people that don't know, she was in the league.
This is year 9, correct?
Prior to her being with the Chicago Sky.
Thank you. Okay.
Her career started before she got with the Sky. I know that might be when most people started paying attention to her, but she started prior to then.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something, because I'm like, I know that she's been in the league longer than 5 years. There's no possible way.
I've been covering Kahleah Copper teams for 5 years. So, no, she's been in the league a lot longer than
Back to our regularly scheduled program. That just made me mad, like straight mad, because what do you mean you didn't get her draft year correct? Like, I just feel like it's such a small thing, and we're talking about one of the most versatile players in the league, one of the most physical players in the league, like, and you're just going to completely get one of the an MVP candidate at one point of the season last year, and you're just going to completely get this detail wrong. Maybe it's my OCD, but it just really bothers me when they can't get small, minute details that don't really matter correct, because that means the details that do matter, they're not getting correct either.
Yeah, that's It's a problem. We gotta be
ESPN,
better.
I'm looking at you
We gotta
because
be better with that.
what the hell?
Yeah, we gotta be better with that. But bringing it back to the Mercury and their defense, that's gonna be the side of the ball where they're gonna be pushing their chips forward most, and they're gonna hope that their defense is what sets the table for their offense. Whether they're playing in transition a lot, playing off of getting steals and turnovers, or pushing off of rebounds, which we've talked about a lot, they're gonna be a team that looks to rebound well. Sammy Wickham led the team in rebounds on Sunday.
Right.
Don't think anybody would have predicted that she would do that at any point in the entire season.
Correct.
So that just speaks to the group rebounding emphasis that they're going to be looking to have. All 5 players on the court crashing the boards. Not going to be leaning on only Kahleah or only Satou or only Alyssa to do that. It's going to be a group thing. So like I always talk about, putting a period on your sentence for defense. Can't stop a sentence until you get the period. Grab the rebound. That's when you stop your defense and you start your offense. I think they're going to be looking to do a whole lot of that this season as well.
I'm looking for a whole lot of complete sentences and no run-ons this year.
Exactly. The run-ons are what hurt a team, especially come playoff time.
And we saw it last year. I mean, I can't remember who commented it at the very beginning, but he said it correct. Like, when you can't close out those possessions, like, and you're giving a team like the Lynx another opportunity to put more points away against you, that becomes a problem for you, and it cannot happen, and you win playoff basketball games.
I talked to who was it that I talked to last season about that? I think it was Sophie. It was definitely Sophie, where it was after a game against the Connecticut Sun. No surprise, they had woes against them because they just couldn't grab rebounds, and that's every bit of the identity that the Connecticut Sun and Alyssa Thomas had and are. And now it's welcoming for the Mercury to have that on their team, but when that's going against you, you're taking away possessions, you're taking away the amount of shots that you have on goal in comparison to your opponents, and it's impossible. It's already hard enough to play defense for 24. Imagine if you're trying to play for 48 or more than that.
Correct.
And that's what Sophie's point was for me. It's nearly impossible to be good on defense if you have to play for more than 24 seconds. And teams are getting a shot on goal every single possession if you're not getting turnovers.
Well, and then you also spoke to Sammy about Alyssa, and so I'll let you kind of cue that up a little bit, but I'm really excited to hear what Sammy has to say about this.
Yeah, so we talked about specifically Sammy and other smaller players screening for Alyssa Thomas in pick and roll. They call it inverted pick and roll. That's going to be something that allows for the Mercury to put pressure on defenses in ways unique from other teams. Most teams don't have a 4 or 5 that can handle the ball, let alone actually run a pick and roll and do it effectively. Alyssa's able to do that, and the ways that it can put pressure on the defense is second to none in the entire league. So here's Sammy Wickham talking about screening for Alyssa Thomas, the advantages that they can create in that, and how the Mercury are going to look to work through those going into the season.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Obviously, she can get downhill and she's so dynamic, and it creates so many opportunities for other people. She's a fantastic passer out of that, but she's also just a great finisher out of that too. So I think for us, making sure that, like, if we're setting that screen, we're setting a good one and forcing, if it's the switch that we want, to get a smaller person on her. But we just want to make sure we're putting them in a tough position to have to figure out, like, are they switching? Are they putting 2 on her? Are they staying with and trying to fight through and she gets a layup? Like, the angle, the location, to your point, lower is probably better so that they can't just, slide under. I think all those things really matter, and those are some of the things that we're really trying to clean up.
I mean, all of those details are really important. We talk about angles, we talk about where they're being set, how they're being set, the matchups that we want. We're asking our players to do a lot of things IQ-wise and see things, and we'll continue to grow as we kind of just learn how to play with each other, where we want the ball, how we want to get screened. All that just takes time. We've been together 12 practices, so I think we're farther than we probably thought we'd be in certain circumstances, so hopefully we can continue to grow.
Yeah, so there's Coach as well as Sammy Wickham talking about them and their usage of Alyssa in that context of play. I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that going forward. I have some additional content coming over the next couple of days, diving into the details of how they use that action where Alyssa is being the initiator of pick and roll. Just kind of diving into the details of what we saw from preseason and the reps that they did use it. It's going to be fun. Alyssa is a player that you can use however you want, and she's going to find a way to make it a positive advantage for you. And yeah, looking forward to breaking all of that down going throughout the season.
Well, and before we go, I have to give y'all one thing you have to watch all season long. Stephen and I were watching the game on Sunday, and I look at him at one point, and I'm like, Alyssa smiles. Every time she has to set a screen, every time she is grinning ear to ear. Don't nobody love what she do like her. You know, I know they joke about doing it for the love of the game. Alyssa really do it for the love of the game. And it's very entertaining to watch. I think Mercury fans are not going to have a light anything to watch this season. It's going to be a lot of fun all the time, and it's going to be really intense. And I think the pace that the Mercury is going to play with is going to be electric for the fan base, and I just think there's only reasons to be optimistic about this team. I know y'all heard me joke 44-0 until proven otherwise, and you know what, the season still ends, though this team has really high expectations for themselves and has every ability to meet those, if not exceed them. And so I'm really excited for the season, and I think everyone else should also be, you know, locked in and loaded for this Mercury season. I
agree. Buckle up. It's going to be a very fun season for the Mercury, for the league as a whole. And we are looking forward to bringing y'all the best coverage in Phoenix in alignment with all of that. So stay locked in with us. We got a lot of things coming on the show. Obviously, things coming for our diehards, which if you aren't already, I would highly advise becoming one. And let's have a great 2025 WNBA season.
Yeah, please tap in with us both over on Twitter. Steven at StephenPG3, me at Erika LeDay, and then both of us together at PHNX_Mercury, where if you want to, you know, contribute to the conversation, I put up this hilarious airport meme yesterday. You can go tap in with that. I spent many of hours on my iPad trying to get that just perfect. So please go, you know, follow that Twitter account. And again, huge shout to Shane Diefenbach for making today's very, very busy schedule work with all of our gazillion of assets today. Shout out to all of you guys for joining in the comments. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, 5-star wherever you get your podcasts. Am I forgetting anything, Stephen? All right.
Check off all the boxes.
Saturday postgame show. Be there, be square. Home opener versus Seattle Storm. I mean, what a storied rivalry, right? So I'm excited about this game. I can't wait to see Dominique in person, hopefully not dunking on my squad.
Only dunks in pregame. That's
it. For real. Pregame dunk clip coming of Dominique, but nothing else. So anyways, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you guys on Saturday.
We all silly like the mayor.